Coming up, Jonathan visits the picture-perfect islands of Palau. Welcome to Jonathan Bird's Blue World.
The Republic of Palau is an unspoiled and remote island nation, known as one of the world's top diving destinations. Consisting of more than 500 islands, surrounded by beautiful clear water and healthy reefs, Palau is definitely a diving paradise. It's also a bit famous for this brackish lake, filled with millions of non-stinging jellyfish. The water is consistently very clear, with visibility generally more than 100 feet. The narrow channels between the shallow reefs often have manta rays gulping down plankton in the current. And the green islands are a picture postcard of tropical paradise. Located 500 miles east of the Philippines, Palau isn't close to anything. After 2 days of flying, camerawoman Julia and I are on our way to the live-aboard dive boat that will be our home for the week, the Rock Island's Aggressor. This large catamaran is part of the Aggressor fleet, a worldwide brand of luxury boats catering specifically to divers. For 7 days, we will live on this amazing boat and have access to dive sites all around the islands of Palau. Our diving will be done from this smaller tender, which is fast and maneuverable for plucking divers out of the water as they surface. But the coolest part is the boat lift, where they lift the tender out of the water for easy access. We arrive with a bunch of other guests, welcomed with a cool drink.
Wow, this is great.
The crew unloads all of our gear while we get our first briefing on how everything will work on board.
Aggressor. Camera tables, of course, and in the cabins for cabins 1 through 8.
On the lower deck, we find the cabins where we all sleep. There's an outdoor seating area, a salon where we eat and relax, an upper deck to enjoy the sunsets, and of course the main dive deck where all the wet stuff stays. The first night, cruise director Ben Clark gives us our first dive briefing and introduces the crew. Early the next morning, we're all suited up in wetsuits and ready for our first dive. Dive Master Star gives us a briefing on the site. Palau has a lot of current, so paying attention is important. Then we board the tender for our first adventure. We have a few minutes to put on our gear during the ride out to the dive site with Captain Ike driving the boat. Finally, we get to the mooring. For our first dive, we're doing an easy site with no current.
1, 2, 3.
We are greeted with crystal clear conditions and an amazing reef drop-off. On the top of the reef, we find a chimney, which is basically a vertical hole in the reef that we can drop straight down into. I follow the twinkling light beams slowly into the depths. Soon the chimney turns horizontally, forming a sort of cavern in the side of the wall. At just over 100 feet, we enter a fantastic world where only our bubbles seem to know which way is up. The light down here is magnificent, but we only have a couple of minutes before we need to head up to shallower water for the rest of the dive. Cruising along the edge of the wall, I soar like an eagle ray over the precipice, which drops into the blue abyss, out of sight. The wall forms a vertical habitat, with huge red Gorgonian corals reaching into the current for plankton to eat. A pair of sweet lips hangs out in their living room behind a pink soft coral gently swaying. Drifting with the current, I come across a hawksbill sea turtle hunting for sponges to eat. Once she gets used to my lights, she goes about her business. Hanging back a ways from the other divers so all their bubbles won't scare my subjects, I come across a spadefish hovering head up at a cleaning station. As I move in for a shot, the fish moves away, revealing a green sea turtle. At first, I think she's positioning herself for a nap in her favorite spot. But as I continue to observe, I notice that she's actually using the coral to scratch her shell. You might not suspect that a sea turtle could feel anything on the outside of its shell, but the fact that sea turtles are often seen scratching an itch definitely means they do. And sometimes humans offer a welcome bit of help. You should never just swim up to a sea turtle and try to scratch its shell. But if I see a sea turtle desperately trying to reach an itch, I feel it's okay to lend a gentle hand. And when that itch has been scratched, off she goes. After a relaxing safety stop, it's time to head to the boat. Julia and I pop up from the dive with lots of great memories and some fun footage for Blue World fans everywhere. Then it's back to the Rock Island Aggressor for some lunch. We're met by Repan with some cold drinks.
Oh, how great is this? Oh, you gotta love it.
Man, I can get used to this. While we all enjoy a nice lunch, Captain Ike is moving the Aggressor to another area. I expect to see a big wheel, but he's driving with a tiny joystick like a video game. Captain Ike has been navigating these waters for many years, and he knows how to get this huge vessel up the middle of a narrow channel barely deep enough for the keel in a strong current. After lunch, another dive briefing for another dive.
Any questions? All right, let's go diving. You be diving.
For us, every dive is new and exciting. You just have no idea what you might see. Once again, the tender is lowered into the water and off we go. Soon we're speeding over the waves towards a current-swept reef known for exceptional marine life. Palau is known for strong currents, and some of the dive sites have incredible shark action that can only be seen if the divers use reef hooks to hang on. So for this dive, we all have our reef hooks and we're ready for the current.
I've been hooked. I don't know about this. 1, 2, 3.
We have to roll in together and swim quickly down to the reef because you can't always swim against the current. But soon we realize that we have hit perfectly at slack tide, and there's almost no current. As a result, the fish are relaxing. Instead of swimming hard in formation to maintain their positions, they're acting like a bunch of kids at recess just enjoying themselves. A big Napoleon wrasse comes over to say hi. That is one big fish. I'm glad he's friendly. This fish is almost always at this dive site, but tends to be the most curious when the current is not too strong. As I swim along the reef, the fish are so chill, they don't even mind my lights. A sea snake is hunting through the reef for shrimp. Out of the corner of my eye, I see one school of fish is spawning, and another school of fish swoops in to feast on the eggs. But some of those eggs will escape and turn into baby fish. There are so many fish that it's hard to figure out what to film next. But then I see Bumphead parrotfish, some of the oddest looking characters on the reef. The bumphead is aptly named, and being the largest herbivorous fish on the reef, it eats algae that it gnaws from the reef with some big teeth. And the bumphead is for fighting. At the top of the reef, a big school of snapper poses for my camera. If they look like they're not up to much, that's because they mostly chill out over the reef during the day, then head out to hunt over sandy habitats at night when their preferred food, things like shrimp and other crustaceans, comes out. Nearby, a school of gold spot sea bream with their characteristic golden yellow spots. I love these fish. They always look like they have sunlight shining on their butts. Like the snapper, they're waiting for darkness to hunt. Because let's face it, they aren't sneaking up on anything during the day with those golden butts. After an unexpectedly relaxing dive, Julia and I head reluctantly back to the surface. Man, when the tide goes slack, the fish come out to party. That dive was just completely full of action with fish swimming up into the water column. There was spawning, and a sea snake came along. What a great dive. As the sun gets low in the sky, we cruise on back to the Rock Island Aggressor. We're hungry and ready to dry out a little. During dinner, we enjoy an insanely beautiful sunset, but we won't be dry for long because Julia and I are going on the night dive. Well, we've been seeing a lot of sea turtles here in Palau, but tonight we're gonna go see what they're doing after dark. One last time for the day, our tender hits the water, and soon after, we hit it too. Without strong sunlight filtered through seawater making everything look blue, the true colors of the reef pop under our video lights. Red, yellow, orange, and pink, these colors are so hard to see during the day. A sponge is covered in tiny worm-like sea cucumbers surviving in a symbiotic relationship. A huge nudibranch the size of a shoe is searching for food. A drowsy anemone fish is wondering why some dude turned on the lights. A lionfish is on the prowl. We find some sea turtles and watch them for a while. They don't seem to be doing much. I would expect them to be sleeping, but they're just pacing back and forth up and down the reef. It's possible that these are females with eggs waiting for the right moment to head ashore to lay them in a nest. In Palau's southern lagoon lie the Rock Islands, a collection of more than 250 former coral reefs which were pushed up out of the water 35 million years ago by volcanic action. Many of the islands have lakes in the middle. Although some of the water in the lakes comes from rain, seawater slowly seeps through the porous limestone too. So the water in the lakes is salty, but not as salty as the ocean. Hence, they're called marine lakes. Jellyfish Lake is a marine lake, but this one is special. It's full of jellyfish. Now, technically, jellyfish aren't fish at all. They don't have a backbone, so the proper term is jelly. But Jelly Lake doesn't sound that good, so Jellyfish Lake it is. To reach Jellyfish Lake, we take a boat ride through the Rock Islands to Isle Malk, also known as Mechurchar Island.
Once we get off. Oh. Because we can't.
So how far is the walk?
Maybe about 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Yeah, and it's only halfway uphill, so.
I gotta carry that thing 20 minutes up a hill? Oh, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this.
After we show our permits, we have to hike up and over a big hill to reach the lake. And all the gear has to be hand-carried up the steps.
This camera's been to a few places, but not many were this much work. Well, I've come a long way to finally be here at Jellyfish Lake. I flew across the world, took a hugely long boat ride this morning, hiked through the jungle, and here I am. And the only thing is, I don't see any jellyfish. So I really hope that there's some over there in the sunlit part of the lake.
Soon we start suiting up, but we're only going to use snorkel gear because scuba gear is not allowed. I'll explain that later. Since we have a long swim to the jellyfish, our guide Matt is going to take the cameras over on a kayak. Julia and I will have to swim. The lake doesn't look very big, but when you have to swim across, it's big. As we start to see jellyfish, I get my camera and start filming. They're all over here because the jellyfish follow the brightest light on the lake. When one side is in shade, they swim to the sunny side. That's because these jellyfish are carrying a kind of algae in their skin called zooxanthellae. It's almost the same exact thing found in the skin of certain corals. The algae are plants and make energy from sunlight, which they share with the jellyfish. So basically, these jellyfish are photosynthetic like plants. They need the sun to survive and get almost all their energy requirements from the zooxanthellae. As they swim, they slowly rotate, giving all the zooxanthellae an equal share of direct sunlight. The jellyfish have been here for thousands of years. With generation after generation of jellyfish living secluded in the lake, having no contact with the ocean, the jellyfish have slowly changed. As they became more and more dependent on solar power and didn't have much prey to eat, they eventually lost their stinging cells. So these jellyfish, known as the golden jellyfish, are totally harmless. And they're found nowhere else in the world. They're related to the jellyfish found in other marine lakes in Palau, but these are special. I mentioned before that there's no scuba diving allowed in here. There are two reasons why. First of all, a diver down below would make a ton of scuba bubbles, which would tear the jellyfish apart. They're fragile creatures. But there's something in this lake that isn't good for divers either. The upper 50 feet of water where the jellyfish live is about half as salty as seawater on average and has fairly normal distribution of dissolved oxygen. It's your basic brackish water. But below 50 feet, there is almost no dissolved oxygen, and instead the water is filled with hydrogen sulfide, a toxic chemical produced as a result of decomposition of organic material that falls into the lake from the surrounding jungle. Because there is so little water flow in and out of the lake, there's nothing to flush out the hydrogen sulfide. It just sits down there, a toxic bathtub underneath the normal water above. Divers could be poisoned by absorbing the hydrogen sulfide through their skin, so they should never go down there. only bacteria can live down in the anoxic layer. But in addition to hydrogen sulfide, the anoxic layer is filled with nutrients released by organic decomposition, things that plants love, like nitrogen and phosphorus. As a result, the jellyfish make short trips down to the very edge of the deep layer every night to absorb some of those nutrients. Their symbiotic zooxanthellae are plants, and like any plants, they need fertilizer. The jellyfish have developed an ability to tolerate a little bit of hydrogen sulfide exposure every day in order to feed nutrients to their symbiotic partners. So during the day, they give the zooxanthellae sunlight. During the night, they give them fertilizer. And the jellyfish enjoy a life without having to hunt for food. But that doesn't mean something doesn't try to hunt them. Near the lake shore, the bottom is covered with anemones. These animals are basically jellyfish that don't swim. But the anemones sting. They wait patiently for food. And their primary food is jellyfish. This is another reason for the jellyfish to stay out in the sunny part of the lake, not in the shade near shore. In the middle, they're safe. This guy wasn't so lucky. After an hour swimming with the jellyfish, I make my way back towards the dock. I can feel jellyfish bouncing off my skin as I go, and I am grateful that these little squishies don't sting. Palau is notorious for being the site of the bloodiest battle of the Pacific during World War II. Here, the United States and Japan fought for control of this tiny nation in a battle that took over 2 months. 13,000 men lost their lives. Remnants of the battle are everywhere, both above and below the water. It's a cloudy morning as we head out to the wreck of the Eero. But we soon forget the weather as we roll into the warm ocean. The Eero definitely has the shape of a ship, but there's something odd about it. This ship grew a beard. Closer inspection reveals that every square inch of the wreck is covered in a thick growth of healthy coral. Swimming across the deck at 25 meters, I pass through superstructure that barely resembles its man-made origins. The latter is the only giveaway. Sponges add a splash of red. Sinking into one of the cargo holds, the visibility drops significantly due to the deterioration of the cargo and a lack of water movement. We don't touch anything down here because there's a lot of live ammunition that could explode even after all this time. Good buoyancy is important. A layer of who knows what is suspended like clouds near the ceiling. There are cases of sake bottles. Coil springs and ammunition. The wood has rotted out of these barrels, leaving just the metal hoops. There's even rope, almost 80 years old and still intact. The Eero was a Japanese warship, 470 feet long, that survived a sub-attack and an aerial attack before finally being sunk by a 1,000-pound bomb that hit the engine room in March of 1944. 75 years later, marine life has replaced this ship's violent past with a peaceful and benevolent existence. the upper deck, a field of lettuce coral, the weight of which will eventually cause the deck to collapse as it rusts away underneath. Schools of fish find safety within the protection of a large stand of staghorn coral. You need to back up to realize this is not a natural reef, but more like a beautiful terraced garden. Soon, with our air running low, we head back to the boat.
Wow. Just amazing. I mean, the amount of marine life that grows on the wrecks around here. It's a whole different way of wreck diving. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, the wreck's pretty cool, but look at all the coral. Wow.
Our dive on the Eero gave us a taste of Palau's wide range of wrecks, leaving us wanting more. So, at the end of our week diving with Aggressor, we decide to stay a few more days and see a couple more wrecks. We head over to Sam's Tours, where we meet up with local wreck expert Matt Boyle. All of Sam's Tours boats are named after sharks, and today we're on the Silvertip. Captain Ford Castillo knows these waters like the back of his hand. We get our gear ready. Then it's time to head out. You don't even need to go diving to enjoy the beautiful scenery of Palau. Driving the boat between the islands is a blast and so picturesque. We've arrived at the wreck of the Teshio Maru. As we head down the algae-covered mooring line, soon the wreck comes into view. At only 24 meters maximum depth, this is one of the shallowest wrecks in Palau, and it has pretty good visibility too. The twisted wreckage of the Teshio Maru is fun to swim through. Matt leads the way on a tour of the wreck. Like the Eero, it has a ton of marine growth. But the bow still looks like a ship. As I round the corner of the bow, there's an opening in the hull that is probably a result of an explosion. Matt and I head inside. Bulkheads have rusted through, providing a way to sneak between holds safely. We can always see the way out. In the engine room, we find some kind of catwalk and some electrical boxes. It's difficult to determine what a lot of this stuff was after 75 years in the ocean. We turn and head back towards the light, making our way through the twisted remains of the hull plates. The Teshio Maru was actually washed up on shore after the attack, but slipped into the water following a storm, tumbling, twisting, and breaking on its way down the slope to its final resting place. This is one of the things I love about wreck diving, crawling through tight restrictions. Of course, it means you get rust stains on your wetsuit. On the end of a mast, I examine a small reef community, complete with sponges, fish, and coral, a microcosm of the Palau marine ecosystem. After a decompression stop on the mooring line, I reluctantly head back up to the surface. We switch our gear over to fresh scuba tanks because we have one more wreck to explore. But first, Ford wants to show us something cool. A cave. But this is no ordinary cave. So this was a secret Japanese seaplane base where they would refuel their seaplanes in a cave. And there's a fuel pump over there and a whole bunch of barrels. And the Americans bombed it with a skip bomb, which skipped across the water and came in here and lit the whole place on fire. So the whole thing is all burned out. Exploring this cave is a perfect surface interval between dives. Then it's off to our last wreck. And it's not a ship. This is a Japanese seaplane, one of the planes that would have refueled in the secret cave gas station. The seaplane is an Aiki E-13A Japanese Navy reconnaissance plane, powered by a 14-cylinder radial Mitsubishi engine. At only 38 feet long, it was not a large plane, which made it perfect for spy missions. And the pontoons meant it could land and hide anywhere in the maze of Palau's islands. Today, the pontoons are deteriorating, but they're still easily recognizable. Because the prop is not bent, the engine was likely not running when the plane sunk, and because the canopy is open, the pilot most likely escaped. Over time, the heavy Mitsubishi engine fell off, exposing the internals, but there isn't much to see since marine growth has covered everything over. There is some kind of electrical box on the bottom next to the wreck. Swimming behind the plane, I can see that the tail section is missing, allowing a look up inside the back of the cockpit. And I can also get a pilot's eye view out the windscreen. On the right wing, some kind of container, possibly for oil. Nearby, we find the tail section, completely overgrown in coral. Seems to me this would make a great place for fish to hang out. A fish hanger. It's not a very big wreck, but it's really cool because you can see the whole thing at once. Marine life doesn't seem to grow on the aluminum skin of a plane as much as it does on the steel of a shipwreck. So the plane still looks almost ready to fly.
Plane wrecks are cool, and it's hard to believe that that one is 70 years old. It's so intact, the metal's still shining.
After a few days of getting used to the underwater conditions, now our group is ready to take on a legendary dive site. We awake in a small protected bay off the island of Palau in the southern part of Palau. Palau is notorious for being the site of the bloodiest battle of the Pacific during World War II. During the battle, American troops stormed Palau Beach, now a peaceful lagoon. Just off the beach is Palau Corner, a reef that juts out into the ocean with a steep drop-off. Extreme currents rip up and across this reef, and this is where we're diving.
If the current is strong, we're not going to hook in. We're just going to drift.
The morning begins with a dive briefing, and we all need to pay close attention because this dive site can be dangerous.
We can go to the corner, but we usually just stay at shallow depths rather than just right on the reef.
But we're ready.
You should make a dive with 2300.
We drop into the water and quickly descend to the reef, which is bathed in clear oceanic water. The dive masters have dropped us upstream from the dive site, so we can drift with the current down to the perfect spot on the corner of the wall. This part is easy. Once we reach the spot, we have to fight the current to stay in position and maneuver to our desired places. Once we get there, we do something quite uncommon in scuba diving. We actually anchor into the reef with a short line that has a hook on it. Then we flap in the current like flags. This actually does less damage to the reef than having a bunch of people hanging on and kicking the coral. We float above the reef without any effort. And soon we have gray reef sharks around checking us out. So why are they here? The strong currents bring nutrients and plankton, which attracts large numbers of fish. They don't mind the current, and that attracts sharks. Unfortunately, because the sharks are here for fish, they have little interest in us. So sometimes they don't come very close. But every few minutes, a curious shark makes a pass to have a look at us. Without the reef hooks, this dive would be almost impossible, especially with a camera. The safest way to conduct this dive is to keep the group together. So after a while, we all unhook at the same time and drift down the reef to be picked up by the boat. We pass a large school of jacks. And a white-tip reef shark. And then a huge school of fish comes by. These are sailfin snapper, also known as blue-lined sea bream. Astonishingly, these are normally solitary fish. The only time they get together in schools like this is to spawn. And this school of fish seems to go on forever, like a river. But the shark action, as it turns out, isn't quite over. Just as we're getting ready to ascend to the boat waiting above, a huge shadow emerges from the blue. It's a whale shark! She's not the biggest whale shark I've ever seen, but whale sharks are extremely rare in Palau for some reason. And this is the first time most of the dive masters have ever seen one in their lives. As she heads off into the blue, everyone's a little disappointed. But I've been around whale sharks a lot, so I keep my camera ready. They often circle back for a look. And here she comes. I believe whale sharks are pretty intelligent and truly curious. Of course, when you see a whale shark, you have to do a celebratory dance. Whale sharks are so rare that when we tell the crew back on the Aggressor, they don't believe us.
Are you serious?
They actually saw a whale shark?
Are you serious?
As we celebrate over lunch, Captain Ike drives the boat out to open water on our way to the next dive site. Our next dive will be in the German Channel. where we will experience what could be described as an underwater river dive.
So we kneel down for a while, wait a little bit.
Soon we're on our way to another adventure involving strong current. We begin the dive at the mouth of the channel where the tide is pushing water up into the channel. With reef hooks in place, we wait for some shark action. A few sharks pass by, but there isn't too much going on. So we unhook and do a drift dive with the incoming current up the channel. The coral flies by, and we don't even have to kick. When we pass a couple of giant clams, I tuck out of the current to get a few shots. Even though giant clams are protected, it takes a long time for them to get this big. Although they feed on plankton by filtering it from the water with their siphons, they also collect solar power with the photosynthetic symbiotic algae in their skin. Soon I continue on my extremely strenuous dive, making my way back to the boat. Zooming at high speed back towards the Aggressor, Captain Ike spots something in the water off the port side of the tender. A huge pod of dolphins is converging on us quickly. Dolphins love to play in the bow wave of boats. It's their version of surfing. Soon we get too far from their stomping grounds and the dolphins turn back. And we return to our floating palace. Today we're heading out to do a dive at a famous site called Chandelier Cave. A short boat ride later, we reach a spot with a spooky hole in the seafloor. As we head into the cave, I immediately start to wonder about doing a cave dive without proper cave diving gear. But this cave has something making it different from most of my cave dives. The chambers are only 3/4 full of water. So we are in a true cave with no ambient sunlight, but we can surface to breathe. That's why they can bring open water divers in here without cave training or serious cave diving gear. In an emergency, you can always surface to breathe. Inside, there are beautiful flowstone formations, still forming from dripping water above the surface. As we explore further, I can see a change in color on the formations, indicating the boundary layer called the halicline. The white rock above the line indicates the freshwater layer. The darker rock below the line has marine growth from the seawater layer. Of course, during the last ice age, when so much water was locked up in glaciers, the oceans were 100 meters lower. This cave would have been bone dry. I'm swimming across the ceiling of a huge room. 15,000 years ago, I would have to walk on the floor 50 feet below. I follow our guide into the next room. There's a place where we can climb up out of the water a little. This allows me some leverage to lift my heavy camera out of the water for a shot of the room. As we continue back out of the cave, the walls below the halicline show patterns created by thousands of years of being eroded and dissolved by seawater. The softer parts have dissolved away, but the harder parts, probably marine creatures encapsulated within the ancient reef limestone, are still there, defiantly sticking out. Soon we can see the light of the entrance and make our way back to the sun. After the dive, we head back to the Aggressor. Later, we enjoy an amazing Palau sunset. Early, and I mean early, the next morning we get up for a special dive briefing. Each month on the new moon, the Bumphead Parrotfish spawn. It happens really early in the morning. We need to be in the water by 7 a.m. You can tell I'm not really awake yet, but I need to get my game face on because this is an important shoot for our upcoming IMAX film, Secrets of the Sea.
I'm really nervous because this is the whole reason we came this week, to see this spawning event. And there's like 10 boats out there, so the place is going to be full of people. We don't know if they're going to spawn, and if they do, we don't know if I'll even be able to get a shot through all the divers. Fingers crossed.
We suit up with anticipation that the fish will spawn and we'll be able to get good shots of it for our IMAX film. When we reach the spot where the fish spawn, I can already count 6 other boats. Our captain jockeys for a good position.
1, 2, 3.
I hit the water and quickly look around. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to be looking for. I've never seen this spawning event before. Then I notice deep below, fish gathering. But all around me, divers everywhere. I slowly sink down into the midst of the fish. It's deeper than I expected. They don't seem to be doing anything, but you know they're up to something because you don't normally see this many bumphead parrotfish together. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of them. But then something changes. The fish all start swimming in the same direction. As the females get ready to release their eggs, they swim in order to release them over a larger area so they can't be eaten by predators as easily. The males follow, waiting for their chance to spawn. Meanwhile, I'm swimming as hard as I can to keep up. With this much exertion at 90 feet, I'm going through my air quickly. I won't have long to get the shots. Then it starts. The females rise up in the water column to release their eggs with a dozen males following. When the female releases the eggs, the males rush in to be the first to fertilize them. The entire school of bumpheads breaks up into smaller groups that are spawning. They leave behind thick clouds of eggs, the next generation of bumpheads. I must keep swimming to stay with the fish and ahead of the other divers, but I slow down as much as I can to keep my shots steady. And I'm getting lucky. I'm right in the middle of the action. Julia, who's filming me, is staying back just a little so she won't get in my shots. Soon it seems like the action is winding down. I mean, how long can they keep at it? I'm kind of hoping it's over because I'm getting low on air. But then another spawning run right in front of my camera. Perfect. However, now we really have to go. Julia and I are both low on air. So we rise up to 20 feet for a safety stop, and Julia does a victory dance. I can't believe our luck. I have the shots in the can. Even though we are done, the fish aren't. Deep down below us, the spawning is still happening. It's killing me that I can't go back down there, but I just don't have enough air for that. Or energy.
I don't remember much of that dive because I was hyperventilating the whole time, swimming as hard as I could to not only keep up with the fish, but to stay in front of the hundreds of other divers so I could get a clean shot. But I think I did it. I think I did it. And that is a lot of fish spawning. Holy moly.
It's like a show, like fireworks, just going off all around you, everywhere. Keeping up was a challenge.
Palau is one of the most amazing dive destinations on Earth. The currents of Palau can be challenging, but the rewards are worth the effort. You never know what you might see. Wreck diving is one of the most exciting ways to revisit history. The wrecks of Palau afford a unique and interesting glimpse into one of the most significant battles of World War II. But even for divers who are more interested in marine life, there's plenty of that on the wrecks. Chandelier Cave gives open water certified divers a chance to get a feel for what cave diving is like. And Palau's spectacular marine life means there's always something to see. Bumphead parrotfish, highly endangered in other places, thrive here because of Palau's commitment to the protection of the marine environment. It gives us the chance to see true spectacles of the blue world.